It is morning at Lapis Lazuli Academy when Tiara Rose is suddenly approached by her friends. They express how sad they are about graduation tomorrow, knowing they won't be able to see her as often anymore. With gentle confidence, Tiara Rose reassures them that she will always remain in the kingdom, and there will be many chances to meet as she is destined to become its queen. The girls immediately brighten and excitedly ask when she will marry Prince Heart Knights. Tiara Rose explains that after graduation, she will undergo a year of bridal training before finally marrying Heart Knights in a grand cathedral ceremony. She tells them that, as the future queen, she will do her best to live up to everyone's expectations. Afterwards, she heads to her classroom, where she spots Heart Knights inside. However, something feels off as his expression is unusually grim, making her wonder if something troubling has happened. Before she can approach him, Akari suddenly rushes in and throws herself into his arms. He catches her and his expression suddenly shifts to a fond one. Aware that Tiara Rose is watching, Akari turns and gives her a wicked smirk. Tiara Rose freezes, staring at the two of them in disbelief. At that moment, a flood of memories crashes into her. She suddenly remembers that she is not truly Tiara Rose, but an ordinary girl who loves playing Otomi games. In her previous life, she had cleared Heart Knight's route as the player character Akari. The shock is too much for her to handle. Overwhelmed by the realization, she faints on the spot. In her thoughts, she realizes that she is the villainess instead of the heroine. When she finally awakens, she finds herself lying in a clinic bed with Heart Knights seated beside her. He stiffly informs her that he has already arranged a carriage to take her home. Tiara Rose looks at him in surprise. She remembers that in the game, Heart Knights is the main love interest Akari must win over to achieve the best ending. However, his next words quickly shatter that illusion. Heart Knights coldly remarks that it is unusual for her to suddenly faint and asks if it was merely a ploy to get his attention due to her jealousy toward Akari. His detached tone makes Tiara Rose realize that the real Heart Knights is nothing like the kind and devoted character she remembered from the game. He then adds that although he is technically her fiancé, he will not be able to escort her to the graduation party. Tiara Rose stiffly accepts his apology, but once he leaves, her face turns pale. She knows how humiliating it will be to attend the party alone with her status. More importantly, she knows exactly what will happen next because she has already played this game countless times. Her mind drifts back to the story's premise, where Akari enrolled in the academy thanks to her rare and powerful magic known as the Holy Prayer. Eventually, Akari gains Heart Knight's attention, and once you start winning him over in the game, he begins showering Akari with affection. Tiara Rose recalls how their romance develops through a series of cutscenes, all leading to a happy ending with a grand cathedral wedding. As the carriage carries her back to her manor, Tiara Rose feels sick at the thought of having been reborn as the villainess. She knows that her character treated Akari harshly throughout the story, and that by the time of the graduation ball, she is meant to be condemned for her bullying. In the game, Akari wins while Tiara Rose is dragged away and her engagement to Heart Knights is publicly broken. She doesn't feel she has done anything especially cruel since becoming Tiara Rose, so she quietly hopes that things will not end as harshly as they did in the game. Still, she knows there is no happy ending waiting for her, and that she will never be chosen by anyone due to her reputation as a villainess. When she arrives at the manor, she is greeted by one of the maids, Fellini. As she steps inside, she is surprised to find her parents eagerly waiting for her return. They happily explain that they wanted to give her new accessories for her upcoming wedding and enjoy some sweets together before she begins her bridal training, which will start after the party. Her father, Schnaz, admits that he wants to enjoy more sweets with her because he will miss her dearly, but says he truly wants Tiara Rose to be happy with Heart Knights. Tiara Rose smiles at her parents, cherishing their kindness. From a young age, she had always known she would one day wear the crown, so she had trained her entire life for that role. Schnaz had been especially strict with her upbringing, determined to raise her into a capable and dignified lady. As a result, Tiara Rose herself became strict as well, often scolding Heart Knights whenever she felt he behaved inappropriately. Though it may have seemed harsh, she did it out of love, wanting him to become a better man worthy of the crown. Unfortunately, he never saw it that way, and instead came to view her as cruel. For a moment, she considers skipping the graduation party, but immediately scolds herself, since it would be disgraceful for someone of her status not to attend. So she decides to accept her fate for the sake of her parents. Elsewhere, Aquastide activates his magic, wishing for a different future for Tiara Rose. On the day of the graduation party, Tiara Rose's friends complain about Akari's behavior. They think she's being disrespectful for constantly staying by Heart Knight's side despite Tiara Rose's presence. They assure Tiara Rose that they will always remain by her side, and she thanks them for their loyalty. Once they leave her alone in the room, Tiara Rose begins to tremble. Fellini approaches her and suggests calling Schnaz to escort her, but Tiara Rose insists that she will be fine on her own. She doesn't want to trouble her father over this event, even though she understands Fellini's concern. Schnoz would surely be surprised if he saw her enter the party without an escort. Still worried, Fellini tries to cheer her up by wheeling in a table full of sweets for her to enjoy. Tiara Rose's eyes light up at the sight. She takes a biscuit and immediately feels better. Remembering how she loved sweets and baking in her past life, she is thankful that her hobbies had carried over into her life as Tiara Rose. She smiles at the spread as Fellini admits that she simply wanted to make her smile before the party began. Just then, Akari rushes in to check on her, and the two girls exchange polite greetings. Tiara Rose observes Akari and notices how stunning she looks, dressed in a fine gown and luxurious jewelry, everything befitting the heroine of the game. Akari expresses how worried both she and Heart Knights were when Tiara Rose collapsed yesterday. Moments later, Heart Knights himself enters and walks over to them. Tiara Rose greets him politely as he explains Akari's concern for her well-being. He asks whether Tiara Rose still plans to attend the party. She confirms that she will, since she is feeling better, though she still has some preparations to finish. Understanding that she needs privacy, Heart Knights and Akari leave the room to head to the party as Tiara Rose prepares herself. A short while later, Tiara Rose stands before the grand doors leading to the party hall. She knows that once she steps inside, the condemnation event will finally begin. The guards open the doors and announce her arrival. Gasps ripple through the guests, surprised to see her enter alone, while Heart Knight stands at Akari's side, ready to start the event. Tiara Rose looks at the couple standing before her as Heart Knights begins his announcement, declaring that he's breaking off his engagement with her. Shaw's gasps and steps forward to protest, but stops when Tiara Rose quietly signals him to stay back. Forcing herself to remain composed, Tiara Rose asks Heart Knights for his reason, stating that she does not deserve to be humiliated in such a public manner. He scoffs at her ignorance, stating that she should know the reason herself. She meets his gaze and says that if he had intended to take another consort, he should have followed proper procedure instead of disgracing her before everyone. Heart Knights defends himself, accusing Tiara Rose of treating Akari cruelly after learning that she came from the countryside. Standing her ground, Tiara Rose replies that she was only strict with Akari because she was unfamiliar with the kingdom's laws and customs. She simply did her duty and thought she taught her their ways. Heart Knights counters that Tiara Rose did more than simply teach her. He accuses her of forcing Akari to kneel when greeting him and of stopping her from dancing with him at previous parties. Keeping her voice steady, Tiara Rose explains that it is customary for a prince to be bowed to. As for the dancing, she had intervened because Akari danced with him more than twice in a single night, a privilege reserved only for the crown prince's fiancé, which was supposed to be her. She coldly remarks that Heart Knights should know the rules of their own kingdom. Her words only anger him further, and he continues to hurl accusations at her. Tiara Rose realizes that no matter how reasonable she is destined to lose this confrontation. So instead of continuing to argue, she calmly states that she will allow the engagement to be broken, since Heart Knight's heart clearly belongs to Akari. Maintaining his authoritative demeanor, Heart Knights announces that his engagement with Tiara Rose is effectively broken, and that he is now engaged to Akari, who will be the new future queen. Tiara Rose tries to steady herself, telling herself that even if her heart is broken, she still has her family and friends. That fragile comfort shatters when Heart Knights declares that Tiara Rose will be banished from the kingdom for having harmed the future queen. Tiara Rose freezes. This punishment is far worse than what happened in the game. If she is banished, she will never see her family or friends again. She was prepared to lose, but she did not expect this kind of ending for herself. As despair threatens to swallow her whole, Aquasteed suddenly steps forward, telling Heart Knights that he has gone too far. Aquasteed confidently approaches her and asks if Tiara Rose is all right. She looks at him in surprise, but recognizes him at once as the crown prince of the kingdom of Marin Forest and the main love interest of the game's sequel. She remembers seeing his character design and instantly falling in love with him. Sadly, she never got the chance to play that game, as she had died before it was released. Aquasteed fixes her with a firm yet gentle gaze and tells her to stand tall, because she is the one in the right in this situation. Heart Knights protests that Tiara Rose must be punished, which only angers Aquasteed further. He declares that everything Heart Knights has said and done is far harsher than anything Tiara Rose has ever done. He sharply criticizes Heart Knights, saying that humiliating Tiara Rose at a celebratory event is disgraceful and unbecoming of a prince. Turning back to Tiara Rose, Aquasteed asks if her engagement has truly been dissolved. When she confirms it, he suddenly kneels before her and proposes, confessing that he has long wished to make her his wife. Tiara Rose is stunned by his sudden declaration. Noticing her shock, Aquasteed gently tells her that she is free to take her time. He then kisses her hand, leaving everyone in the room speechless. Tiara Rose smiles softly and thanks him for making her feel valued. No longer the center of attention, Akari steps forward in protest. She insists that Tiara Rose does not deserve a happy ending because of her supposed cruelty. Clutching Aquasteed's arm, she demands that he side with her. Tiara Rose urgently warns Akari not to touch a prince of a neighboring kingdom so casually, but Akari refuses to listen. Aquasteed pulls his arm away and gives Tiara Rose a small smile for her consideration. Then he turns a cold glare on Akari and declares that she has disrespected him by overstepping her bounds, ordering her to be removed at once. Akari is dragged out of the hall, stunning everyone present. Aquasteed returns his attention to Tiara Rose, apologizing for the disturbance and promising that he will always come to her rescue. Tiara Rose gazes at him in disbelief. With Aquasteed's involvement, the story has already changed, and now she has no idea what the future will hold. During the carriage ride back to her home, Tiara Rose couldn't help but reflect on everything that had just happened. Only moments ago, her engagement had been broken off, and she was supposed to receive the game's bad ending. Yet Aquasteed's sudden appearance had changed everything. His proposal still left her in shock, as she could hardly fathom how the main character of the sequel game could fall in love with the villainess. She steals a brief glance at him, and when he notices, his smile softens even more. Embarrassed, she quickly looks away and apologizes. Tiara Rose admits that she is still surprised Aquasteed would ask her to be his consort when there are so many noble ladies vying for his attention. Her words seem to brighten him. He gently asks if he may allow himself to hope. She then remembers that this is not actually the first time they have met. In fact, they had been classmates the year before, though they never had many opportunities to speak. Aquasteed looks thoughtful as he confesses that she had always intrigued him. He recalls watching her from afar whenever she read outside, often accompanied by Fellini, secretly enjoying sweets while absorbed in a novel. He found it endearing how her expressions would change with every page. He even admits that whenever he saw her cry, he felt an overwhelming urge to hold her. Tiara Rose hides her face in embarrassment. Aquasteed gently asks her not to hide from him and apologizes if his actions seemed like spying. He explains that he simply couldn't help himself as his feelings for her slowly deepened. However, knowing she was Heart Knight's fiancé, he never tried to take her away. Instead, he left the country to continue his studies, hoping distance would help him forget her. When he returned for the graduation ball, Heart Knight's announcement shocked him. Realizing the opportunity before him, Aquasteed decided he could no longer remain silent. Tiara Rose thanks him sincerely. In that painful moment, she had felt utterly alone, and his intervention gave her reassurance and strength. Aquasteed admits that even he was surprised by the severity of the punishment announced. Gently gathering a strand of her hair, he presses a soft kiss to it and tells her that if she had truly been banished, he would have taken her away with him without hesitation. Blushing, she admits that it is still hard to believe how deeply he seems to care for her. Aquasteed smiles and assures her that he is serious, then leans in and gently kisses her forehead. When he pulls away, he says he wishes their carriage ride could have lasted longer. He helps her down from the carriage and, before leaving, asks her out on a date. Tiara Rose happily agrees, and Aquasteed promises to pick her up in 3 days. Inside the manor, Tiara Rose finds Schnoz fuming over Heart Knights, angry at the humiliation he caused and the disrespect he showed her. Her parents then ask how she plans to respond to Aquasteed's proposal. With her engagement to Heart Knights now broken, marrying Aquasteed is a real possibility, especially since he formally proposed. Tiara Rose lowers her gaze and says that Aquasteed is far too good for her, quietly telling herself that a villainess does not deserve such a happy ending. The next day, Heart Knights attempts to visit Akari, but the guard initially refuses him entry. He insists that he only wishes to confirm something with her, as the events of the previous night left him unsettled. Eventually allowed inside, he is greeted by an overjoyed Akari. She stands to welcome him and complains about how bored she has been since she is no longer permitted to leave. Heart Knights is unsettled by how little she seems to have reflected on what happened. Akari expresses her shock over Aquasteed's sudden proposal and voicing her concern that Aquasteed may be deceiving Tiara Rose. Heart Knights asks whether Tiara Rose had truly done anything wrong. Akari feigns innocence, claiming she was bullied by Tiara Rose, but endured it because Heart Knights was always by her side. When she reaches out to hug him, Heart Knights immediately pushes her away. Confused, Akari assumes Tiara Rose must have said something to him, but he replies that he has not seen her since the party. Akari wonders why Tiara Rose is still part of the story. In her mind, Tiara Rose's role should have ended after the graduation ball. Akari decides to change her approach and asks Heart Knights to cut her punishment short. When she brings up Aquasteed, Heart Knights grows suspicious. Akari insists that she only wishes to save him, arguing that Aquasteed knows nothing about Tiara Rose's true nature. Before Heartmites can respond, a guard returns to inform him that his visitation time is over. Heartmites leaves the room without a word as a Carrie desperately begs him to stay. Once outside, doubt settles in his chest. For the first time, he wonders if he has made a mistake that can never be undone. Elsewhere, Tiara Rose lies alone in her room, pondering what her future may hold. She knows little about the sequel game, and that uncertainty frightens her. She worries that the true heroine might eventually appear and that, following the original plot, Aquasteed could be swayed by her charm. A soft tap from a stone against her window pulls her from her thoughts. When she looks outside, she is surprised to find Aquasteed standing below, smiling up at her and remarking on how beautiful the moon is tonight. In one smooth motion, he jumps on her balcony and asks if she knows about the Fairy Star Festival, explaining that he wishes to attend it with her. Tiara Rose remembers the Fairy Star Festival as an in-game event where the player attends with the character they are closest to. She tells Aquasteed that the festival is not usually held at this time of year. Undeterred, Aquasteed activates his magic, calling upon the fairies. Noticing her shiver, Aquasteed drapes his coat over her shoulders, insisting he is fine despite her concern. As they take in the cool night air and glowing lights, Aquasteed is suddenly overcome with happiness. He leans closer to her and admits that spending time with her brings him so much joy that it almost feels frightening. Tiara Rose blushes deeply, but her thoughts are interrupted when Aquasteed gently tells her to look up. With no clouds hindering their view, they see a breathtaking sky filled with countless stars, and even a few shooting across the heavens. Entranced by the magical sight, Tiara Rose thanks him. Aquasteed gently gathers a strand of her hair in his fingers and smiles, telling her that he is glad she enjoyed the evening. As Tiara Rose meets his gaze, she feels herself slowly falling in love with him. The following day, Alexander and Heartmites share a meal together. Alexander reveals that he is aware Heartmites disobeyed his orders and visited a Carrie, and he asks whether the visit yielded anything of value. Heartmites answers stiffly, admitting that he realized he had believed a Carrie too easily and should have listened to Tiara Rose instead. Alexander tells him that Tiara Rose had expressed the same sentiment. He explains that he went to see her to apologize for Heartmites' injustice, but she insisted she did not blame Heartmites at all. She even admitted that she should have communicated with him more openly. Heartmites is filled with regret as memories of his time with Tiara Rose resurface. He recalls how often she scolded him while they were growing up. Alexander gently reasons that Tiara Rose did so because she genuinely cared for the kingdom and for him, the person who would eventually wear the crown. Heartmites finally admits that he understands this now, realizing too late that Tiara Rose had always been loyal to him and that he repaid that loyalty by trampling over it. Alexander reminds him that no matter how deeply he regrets his actions, the engagement to Tiara Rose has already been dissolved. Meanwhile, Tiara Rose asks Fellini for advice on which dress she should wear for her date with Aquasteed. Fellini smiles warmly, noting how happy and excited Tiara Rose looks for her first date. That observation makes Tiara Rose realize that this truly is her first date. She sits before the mirror as Fellini fixes her hair with an ornate coral hairpiece. Fellini explains that it comes from Aquasteed's homeland and suggests that wearing it might please him. It isn't long before Aquasteed's carriage arrives. Tiara Rose lets her feet carry her forward, her heart fluttering as she goes to meet him. During the ride, she chats easily with Aquasteed until they arrive at a breathtaking flower field. They settle beneath a tree for a quiet picnic, where Tiara Rose proudly presents a basket of baked goods she prepared herself. Aquasteed gratefully accepts one of the sweets and, after tasting it, admits that it is delicious. His praise makes Tiara Rose beam. She tells him how much she loves eating and baking sweets, explaining that the sweets she brought are her favorites, especially when paired with tea, cocoa, and various other drinks. She even confesses that once, while reading a novel, she accidentally ate an entire basket by herself. The incident had caused her to get scolded by her maid. Aquasteed chuckles at her story, finding her quirks utterly endearing. Listening to her talk feels so natural that he thinks he would do so forever. He reaches for another sweet, and after eating it, he picks one more and gently offers it to Tiara Rose. Though nervous, she allows him to feed her. He then slips an arm around her waist and asks if he may call her Tiara as a nickname. When she gives her permission, his face lights up, and he insists that she call him Aqua in return. And she is even more startled when Aquasteed pulls her into a hug. As he shares how happy he is, Tiara Rose becomes flustered by her racing heart, but she slowly calms when she hears Aquasteed's own heartbeat also drumming madly. She pulls back and hides her face in her hands. Aquasteed laughs softly and apologizes, teasing that she looked as though she had been waiting for a kiss. He quickly adds that he wants to take things slowly before going any further. To ease the moment, he asks if she would feed him a cookie. She agrees, carefully choosing one he hasn't tried yet. After tasting it, he remarks that her sweets have a gentle, comforting flavor, causing her to turn away to hide her blush. His gaze then falls on her hair ornament because of their position, and he asks aloud if wearing it means he has a chance with her. Tiara Rose turns back and gives him a warm, sincere smile. Taking that as his answer, Aquastide leans against her. Though Tiara Rose still worries about the uncertainty of her future, she allows herself to savor this small moment of happiness. When she returns home, she tells her father that she wishes to accept Aquastide's proposal. Though Shanaz admits it pains him to see her go, he agrees, saying her happiness matters more than anything else. Before long, Tiara Rose finds herself at Aquastide's castle, where she meets his attendant, Elliot. As Elliot escorts her to Aquastide, they chat about their respective countries, particularly the accessories each kingdom is known for. Suddenly, Heart Knights appears, freezing in shock when he sees her. Realizing she is there to visit Aquastide, he lowers his gaze. He bows deeply and apologizes for his actions at the graduation party. Fixing him with a stern look, she reminds him that royalty should not bow so easily. Heart Knights smiles faintly, remarking that Tiara Rose has always been the one to keep him in check. He thanks her for everything. Seeing the gentleness in his expression, Tiara Rose feels relieved. She realizes that Heart Knights truly understands now, and that at his core he is not a bad person. As he steps closer, about to reach for her, she is suddenly pulled into Aquastide's embrace. Aquastide fixes Heart Knights with a sharp glare and calmly asks what he intends to do with Tiara Rose. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss a new episode every week.